Hello, I am Phyllis Jones. I am 1/5 of the Fab Five. I'd like to begin today by reading something to you. This is a framed poem that one of the Fab Five purchased for each of us, and it says this: "Someday the light will shine like a sun through my skin, and they will say, 'What have you done with your life?' And though there are many moments I think I will remember, in the end I will be proud to say I was one of us." One of us for the Fab Five is the Fab Five. I'm going to introduce them to you now, and two of them are actually in the audience. Let me start with Diane Earle. She is the Senior Director of Prepared Foods at United Supermarkets. Stephanie McKee is also with us today. Stephanie is the Sales Executive for GVH Distribution Center. Debbie Rubin now resides in Fort Worth, and she's Director of Catering at City Club in Fort Worth, Texas. Jan Tonroy is just recently enjoying retirement of 32 years of teaching school, and she's working part-time at Ammon Museum in Fort Worth. I am currently working as Community Relations Specialist for Lubbock ISD. And no, I don't always carry their heads around on sticks. But our adventures and travels have led us to many amazing opportunities with two cookbooks that we have produced. So when one person is not represented at an event, we place their head in the bowl with the spatulas and the blenders and all of that kind of thing. And so I have them represented here on those sticks. You know, it was interesting when we came time to publish our first book and we had to have an incorporated name, it very quickly came to us that, of course, the Fabulous Five. Well, you know, there are five of us that have been running together for 30 years, and quite frankly, we're fabulous. So it was very easy to do. What started out 30 years ago as a girls' night in, and I'm glad you all are sitting because, yes, we like to cook then, and we still do. But the premise of that get-together was you had to do completely new menu items and recipes to yourself. And by the end of the evening, then you had to produce for the other four a typed printed copy for them to add to a notebook. So if it was at your house, you had to introduce a new appetizer, a super salad, entree, dessert, bread, whatever it was, and then present it to the others in this form. Well, we really ended up with two complete full notebooks, 15 years of great food in this particular notebook. So as time went along, we were finding ourselves calling each other and saying, well, now that bread, do you remember what the temperature was on the oven? And remember that cheesecake that you made? How much vanilla? Because it just says vanilla here. So this was before texting. So we were actually having to call one another and find out the details of our very own recipes that we had put together. So it came clear to us that we needed to put it in an organized fashion so that we could continue to cook out of our very own cookbook. And oddly enough, the first cookbook is called Always Enough Time, T-H-Y-M-E. People asked us all of the time, how do you five women that have children and careers and spouses and travel and fun, how do you make time to cook once a month? All new recipes, everything unknown to you. How do you have time to have fall retreats and spring trips and Christmas celebrations? And in our opinion, as it was 30 years ago, is the same today. There is always enough time if it's important to you. And over the 30 years, we have shared all of life's highs and lows, births, deaths, divorces, promotions, resignations, you name it. We've been through it together in the 30 years. And we say all at Heart's Core Companions has kept us together. Over the years with our careers, we've had time to have 7 children. 2 of them are now married and have grandchildren for us because, again, there's always enough time. Our Girls' Night Out actually produced 2 cookbooks, and as I mentioned to you, the reason for this title is because we truly believe there is always enough time. We met on a fall retreat, probably somewhere Fredericksburg, somewhere out in that part of Texas, and actually sat down, very organized, had laptops, computers, notepads, and assigned jobs so that we could get rolling from this notebook to this finished format. We assigned jobs to each other. We even gave each other titles, because we're now incorporated, the Fabulous Five, Inc. And we left that retreat just knowing that we had our timeline and we were ready to rock and roll, and we were going to produce and present a cookbook. Well, within the next week, Deborah Jo, who resides in Fort Worth, called and said she'd been diagnosed with breast cancer. Well, as you can imagine, it took all of us back, quite a ways back. Well, unbeknownst to the four of us, Debbie spent a lot of her time when she was going through chemotherapy and radiation and didn't feel well enough to go to work. She did a great deal of research on who would publish the cookbook like we wanted it done, in a menu format with family pictures and great elaborate stories. She spent a great deal of time getting things going. So we said to ourselves, if Debbie has time to make this work, certainly we're going to produce a cookbook. We dedicated our first cookbook to Debbie, and she's listed on this page, and I'm so happy to say today she is 15 years breast cancer free. That does deserve a round of applause. I'd also like to tell you this cookbook came out in 2001. I know we're really old, it's 30 years later. But let me tell you something, we have published this book 3 times. We have sold just shy of 15,000 copies. We've had the pleasure of being featured on, yes, the Texas Country Reporter. And many of you know they play those shows over and over and over again. But once you're on the show, then you get to go to their fall festival in Waxahachie. Let me just tell you, with the Fab Five, that was one of the best fun times we've ever had. There are a lot of things happening with Waxahachie. Another opportunity we had was being featured in Southern Living magazine. And this was quite an experience. Who knew that once you got connected with Southern Living, that they actually fly their chef out. He brings those fancy cooking knives. I'm trying to find the page here. He brings his staff, his cameraman, his lighting. They bring in their own meat, their own produce, and they cook it right there in the house from recipes from our very own cookbook. So we were delighted to have that opportunity. We know as individuals that we're very fortunate, we're blessed. We also, the 5 of us, have the resources to do some of these opportunities. We go from the extreme, we indulge in crazy things, we have outrageously fun times and opportunities. But we want to encourage you to know there is always enough time. If it's important to you, you will make time for it to happen. You know, over 30 years, there are so many stories, and this was very difficult for the 5 of us to figure out what we wanted to talk about today. So I'm going to start with this most amazing, darling apron that you see me sporting here, and tell you the story behind the Christmas apron. This Christmas apron was debuted in 1988. One of our first get-togethers, when you came, the 4 of them showed up, and you had these new recipes and fabulous meal, we had the assignment of coming with a story. But with your story, so that we could learn one another, this was, 30 years ago, you had to bring props and pictures and that kind of thing. So we spent our evening doing that. Well, Debbie won the prize for the night. The story was fantastic. She had been in a wedding in the 70s, and each of the bridesmaids wore a different color dress, and each dress was trimmed with the matching color ostrich feather. And there's more. They also carried a parasol, which had the same matching ostrich feathers trimmed on the parasol. Can y'all imagine this? Really. And especially of the 5 of us, Debbie wearing this, it's kind of quite amazing. But our first progressive Christmas dinner in 1988, I decided to find a Christmas apron and trimmed it with red ostrich feathers. It has been in the family since. So for a progressive dinner, if appetizers were at your home, you wore the apron. Then you carried it on to the next house and put it on the hostess that was doing the next bit of the dinner, so forth and so on through entree and dessert. 1 year out of all of these years, we decided that we were going to eat out. And we'd gone to Fort Worth, Texas, and we were going to eat at the Worthington. And yes, the apron made it to Fort Worth, and our waiter was such a sport, and he wore it every time he came to our table. So, even after 14 years, the Christmas apron is still around. There's always enough time. Our progressive dinners have been huge events for us. Stephanie transformed her garage one year into a Mexican cantina, and I'm telling you, from top to bottom. We've had trolley rides where the whole family has celebrated Christmas and gone and seen the Christmas lights. We've done limousines. We've had carolers come to our homes. We've had 3-string violins show up at our homes. We've done everything that you can imagine. Because in our minds, if you're going to do the event, do it in a big way. Do it in a way where you'll remember it and celebrate it from now on. I have to tell you, one of the best stories, in my opinion, and again, there's 5 of us, and it's a good reason there's an odd number, because we vote on everything. And I didn't run this past the other 4 because I, in particular, love this progressive Christmas story. Well, as most women, but particularly the Fab 5, we love to shop. And we love to shop for each other. We love to give gifts, and we love to receive gifts. We love to make packages beautiful and elaborate. And all of us, quite frankly, have spent a lot of time each of those holidays doing things in a great big way. Well, this particular Christmas dinner was at my home, and we'd had dessert, we were getting a glass of champagne, and we were moving into the fireplace area and gathering up all of the presents. Well, now back then, we bought 4 for Jan, 4 for Debbie, 4 for Diane, 4, everybody had 4 packages. So there were 20 exquisitely wrapped Christmas gifts around the fireplace. For some reason, that year, they were all huge. They were huge. I can't even tell you now what were in those boxes, but they were large. And I said, now wait a minute, we forgot to get the gifts for the guys. So I run into the kitchen and I come out with 5 wonderfully packaged Christmas gifts for the men. It was a little golf trinket. May not sound funny to you now, but just imagine this elaborate spray of gifts, and we show up with this for the guys. They did use that little divot thing, by the way. And after that, we gave up giving them gifts because we realized they weren't as into it as we were. So we moved on from that. One of the special things that we have done collectively as a group, I don't know who was the genius behind this, but we decided early on that we were going to celebrate our 50th birthdays in a big way. No, it's hard to believe, but we've all passed 50. But what we decided to do is each birthday would be a surprise birthday trip. So all you knew were the dates and what type of clothing to bring and how long you'd be gone, and a little idea of how much money you might need to spend. So Jan kicked us off into the 50-year decade, and we started out with Jan. We showed up at her, she is a retired school teacher, showed up at her place in a limousine. We had made Sister Yah-Yah hats for everybody with all kinds of trinklets dingling down and making noise and being obnoxious with that. We spent 12 hours going from place to place in Fort Worth. We moved on to Dallas, snacking and nibbling and singing and dancing and listening to music, and that was the start of the 50th birthday party celebrations. The next day, we spent time at a spa, sort of kind of to recover from the birthday party the night before. And we always say Jan was shortchanged in the whole deal, because as the years went on, we got better and better about our fabulous birthday surprises. Stephanie's probably is voted the best 50th birthday surprise. We flew to Dallas, picked up the other 2 girls, and drove down to Galveston, and spent 4 fabulous days on a cruise ship. I'm telling you, if you've never done it, do it only with your girlfriends. It's more fun than fun. A lot of those stories I can't bring to you here today, but let me just tell you, more fun than fun. And then total opposite of that, Diane, because of the fast pace she lives with her career, always chooses a real low-key kind of an event. So for Diane, you'll love this, we rented a houseboat in Little Rock, Arkansas. Once again, if you've not experienced this, it's kind of amazing to get on a houseboat with a captain, and he drives you out into the middle of nowhere on a lake. He drops anchor, a tiny boat comes and picks him up, and they are whisked away. And you are there for 4 days on a houseboat. Well, of course, we had all kinds of groceries. We had a kitchen. We had the sun. We had the deck. We were swimming. We were laughing. For 4 days, we celebrated Diane's 50th birthday in Arkansas. For Debbie, we went Rocky Mountain High. We drove to Denver, Colorado. She was not a fan of the 10-hour car drive, I'll just tell you that. But our first stop was in Denver, and we stayed at a real she kind of hotel for 1 night only because, yes, we wanted to go to a house that we'd rented so that we could cook. And as was mentioned, our favorite time really is getting up slowly, enjoying coffee, really enjoying each other, celebrating the fact that there is always enough time for things that are important. From there, we concluded Debbie's birthday with a trip to Red Rock Amphitheater and heard John Cougar Mellencamp, who, if you're into music and you haven't heard him live, great evening. My 50th birthday was a surprise trip to New York City, my most favorite place on the planet. And the way I knew the birthday surprise is I opened a gift to tickets to hear Jersey Boys on Broadway. Well, as you can imagine, lots of dining and wining and shopping and all kinds of fabulous things happened in New York City. just a few years ago. And the girls had collected money and insisted that I spend that on a shopping trip to Tiffany's. And to this day, that's the only pair of earrings that I own, still from Tiffany's. So it was very, very special. But we have enjoyed so much the time that we have spent together and making things more special and more elaborate. One of my favorite stories, we were very into summer barbecues. You know, when we began, we were all 5 in Lubbock, and then Jan moved to Aledo, and Debbie moved to Fort Worth. Well, this particular year, we were in Aledo, and the 5 of us were over working on the sides for this summer barbecue and getting the grill going on all of this and that. And we hear Mara over here. Now, there are 7 kids in the group, 1 girl, 7 kids of the Fab 5 and 1 girl. And Mara is the second to the youngest. She's on the diving board, and she has all of the 6 boys spread out around the swimming pool and is instructing them on, okay, now you're going to do this, and then after that you do this, and then we realize she's organizing a synchronized swimming activity for our entertainment later in the evening. It really is amazing because our kids have grown up together. For many years, they thought they were cousins. And they went through college together and bumped into each other through the course of time. And it's just really fascinating to see how they have stayed connected. Well, as time moves on, we've been together now for 30 years. Our second book was released this year, May 2016, just back behind here at the Legacy. And as you can imagine, the title is It's About Time. The reason it was easy for us to label it, our fans from Cookbook 1 would run into us everywhere, mainly the grocery store, and say, when are you coming out with book 2? When are you ladies going to have time to make book 2? And so, yes, we decided at one of our trips, if we didn't do book 2, we would really regret it later. So we released our second cookbook in May of this year, and we agree, it is about time. I've mentioned earlier about surprises, and some of the girls are more fond of surprises than others, but one of my favorite memories for our group, when Debbie was pregnant with her one and only son, and Ben is the youngest, he's now 21, she was bedridden. And it was hard for all of us. She'd just gone through the breast cancer thing. She didn't live in Lubbock. We weren't there to cook for her and hold her hand through the week. So we decided to make a trip to Fort Worth. We picked up Jan and Aledo and surprised Debbie at her home. For 3 days, we were going to be still on the couch with her. And so after we got over the excitement of that and we made sure that she was okay, because it was quite a surprise, we sent Diane and Stephanie out to the grocery store because, yet again, yes, we love to cook. Well, while they were off to the grocery store, we called in the chef that we'd organized to come into Debbie's home. She's bedridden, can't go to a nice restaurant. And he comes in with his crew and wait team. By the time Diane and Stephanie came back to the house, we had an elaborate, beautifully displayed table ready for a 5-course meal by a chef that we'd hired to celebrate Stephanie's 40th birthday. I love the story because we surprised somebody that was in need in our group, and we surprised somebody that was celebrating a big birthday. So that has been a highlight of our group. And just want to say, you can make it work. You have time. If it's important to you, you will make time. There really is always enough time.